Um, Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, and welcome to episode 4 of It's Just Plain Cyber. I'm your host, Terry German, and my co-host, as always, sitting there all pretty, Steve Arnold. How are you, Steve?
I'm not sure about pretty, but I am sitting here. But yeah, no, thanks again for anybody that's tuning in.
Yeah, we're on 4. I know it's not a lot, but it's coming along quite nicely. We've had a couple of good reviews. A couple of my family members have looked at it.
Mhm.
And the funny thing is my mum looked at it. My mum listened to it, and she pretended to my dad that she knew everything I was talking about. And my dad said she's a complete lying. She don't know what I'm talking about. She's just trying to be intelligent. And my cousins and all they've all listened to it and thought it's really really interesting. And
Nice.
it's at the perfect level for people who are just getting into it.
Yeah,
Have you had much feedback yourself?
yes, no, I was just about to say that. Yeah, I've passed it on to, I've got multiple sort of WhatsApp conversations with various different friends in various different areas, people I
Mm,
play football with or people I just socialise with every day, and I've passed it on to them, and I sort of say, look, these are things that do your everyday person is going to encounter, and some of them laughed it off straight away. They're like, "Oh, cybersecurity, that's going to be really boring. I don't want to watch that or listen to
yeah.
that." But then others did, and they said, "Actually, yeah, that was actually quite informative." So yeah, no, we're getting there slowly but surely, sir.
Yeah, that's it. Okay, before we start, as we always normal do, we do our little disclaimer to put our make sure we're all safe. So, any comments or views or opinions within this podcast episode or our past or future ones are our own personal views of myself and Steve, and not related to our current company or our companies in the past. So we got that out of the way. I think it's going to get shorter and shorter. That it's gonna. I'm just going to say it's our views. So forget about everybody else, and then carry on. So,
Yeah,
what exciting things have we got in this episode, Steve?
yeah. So for this one, I mean, more often than not, you tend to lead with the topics, and then we'll we kind of bounce backwards and forwards. You're still going to lead with most of the talking because you know a lot more than I do about these subjects. But um, we thought we might switch it around this time. So, do you want me to list the three main topics, or
Yeah,
do you want to do
list
you
the
want me
three,
to
mate,
list
and I
one?
guess we'll veer off them when we need to.
So you don't want me to run through them
No, you
one by
you
one?
run through them so everyone knows what's coming up.
Okay, yeah. So just as a brief overview, two-factor authentication or 2FA or MFA, whichever you want to refer to it as, apps. And when I say apps, I mean just the security around applications that you're downloading to your mobile phone and the things you need to potentially be aware of. And then also password management.
Hmm.
Again, something we all deal with on a day-to-day life. And yeah, that sounds quite ambiguous, but more in terms of the security around what you're doing with your passwords, because there's a lot of poor practice out there in terms of people will just use
Hmm.
consecutive numbers, etc., etc. And I felt they all merged in quite well together. And again, they're all something that we have to deal with. So, do you want
Yeah.
me to kick off
Um,
with sort of
if we start with the multi-factor authentication or two-factor authentication, I think that would be a
yes,
good one. And
yeah,
if the question I always put there is, if I ask you as the average Joe, and this is
yeah,
no offense to anybody called Joe, the average average Joe on the street, what is multi-factor authentication? I think a lot of them wouldn't be too
mhm,
sure.
yeah,
They would understand the part, maybe the authentication, but understanding how that is and how that is related to what we do in our everyday world, and
mhm,
even in the business world, I think is a really good topic.
yes,
And I think businesses and websites that you go to are starting to use it more and more often now.
mhm, yeah,
Um, and the view behind it is to make sure your data is more secure than just a simple username and password.
yeah.
So what experience have you had within the your recruitment agency and in your family life? Have you had people talking about it and getting confused about it?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say confused as such. It was something that I became aware of many years ago. In fact, actually, I tell a lie. It was through a previous employer, which was a recruitment agency. It actually came about when the pandemic hit, when
Hmm.
everyone started working from home, and we were given mobile devices. And they told me that I needed to download a certain app. I think I forget the name of it now. It was an authenticator essentially. So because if you want to log into things, we need to make sure that it's secure. From that, I obviously did my own research into it. Then I started adding that to things like my Facebook account,
Hmm.
various social media accounts, things like that. And yeah, it does it. It's so important because these days, particularly with topics we're probably going to touch on in a little while in terms of applications or credentials that can be sold or searched on the dark web, things like that. It's essentially my lower level understanding of it, if you like, is it's so you have your password and username for let's just use Facebook as an example.
Hmm.
Somebody may have your password and your email address. It's a physical way of being able to authenticate the fact that you're logging into it through your mobile phone. Not just
Yeah.
that authentication code changes every single time, which also
Hmm.
makes it very much more secure, because if that secondary passcode was the same every single time, somebody's going to find that. So that
Yeah.
change, and it literally you get about, I think it's about 15 seconds actually. It gives you a code, and you've got about 15 seconds to go back into the application to put that identity code in to
Hmm.
show that it is actually you logging in, and then it knows that it's you and not someone that stole your credentials.
Yeah. There's also I think there's other ways of other ways it happens as well. Is you type into a website your username and password, and then they will email or text you a code,
Yep.
and you type that code in. So it's not
Yep.
always downloading an app to authenticate. It's having a text. And as soon as you receive that text and you
Hmm.
type it in, I know, I've even heard my partner doing this. She'll type in her username and password, and then she'll go, oh, got to go on my phone now, and I've got to type this in. And if you don't
Yep.
type it in quick enough, it says it's expired. Then you have to do
Yep.
the whole thing again.
Yep.
There's that part of it, and there's also your fingerprint, your face recognition.
Yep.
So and we'll go on to this in password managers, but there is when you store a password in a password manager or somewhere, and you log into that website, that password manager will suddenly pop up and it will look for your face recognition, especially on your phone, and
Yep.
say, right, okay, that person matches the details we've got, and then you'll let you in.
Yep.
And even though having to type in your username, password, and a code, and get in your phone, what this enables us to be is enables us to be confident that there is the right person. Because there's a couple of times, and I've had this in the past, where you'll get 3 o'clock in the morning, you'll get an email that comes in and says somebody's tried to access your Microsoft account
Yep.
or your email. That please click on this link and type in this code. Now, who's going to use when you're asleep? Who's going to use your Microsoft account, whatever even account you got, at 3 o'clock in the morning? So these are all these things. So if you don't recognize it, then you just decline it, and then that person who's trying to access it won't be able to. So even though it's annoying, and there's people in the line of work I am, they get frustrated when a supplier who's working with them and helping them with the software says, okay, for us to gain access, or you to gain access to our portal, you have to download our authentication app. So you end up having 4 or 5 different authentication apps on your phone. And mine for my email provider has their own authentication or authorization app, which I have to download.
Yep.
But as I don't access it a lot because it's automatically sends me the emails or notifications, when I do have to access it, I'm trying to hunt around on my phone to try and find it. So keeping an eye on these multi-factor authentication is a great way, and relating it to the real world as well. Steve, is um, you have a house that has the first door and a porch door.
Yeah.
There's your two-factor authentication there. Yeah,
Exactly.
you may be able to get in the first door, but unless you've got the second key, you're not going to get in, so it's pointless. So that
Yep.
is why they always happen, and that's why I'm a great advocate of this multi-factor authentication. It just proves that the person logging in is the person logging in.
Exactly. And if there is anybody listening to this that is quite interested in these things and perhaps hasn't got these things set up, a simple Google search will throw up. I mean, Microsoft have got their own, Nord have got their own. There's a bunch that more or less do the same thing. The facial recognition thing is probably something that will tie into our conversation further down the line.
Yeah.
In terms of some of the apps that are doing various things with facial recognition. But well, you may be able to tell me. I'm quite cautious of it, but it may or may not. But yeah, it's certainly something to look into. You see it all the time. I'll get someone's
Are
tried to log.
you saying that I'm the type of person that go on TikTok all the time?
No, well,
I'm doing TikTok videos.
I did. That's a great segue.
Yeah, I was thinking of asking, shall we do set up an account on TikTok and release this on TikTok as well? And
well,
we could make millions, Steve. We could retire to Bahamas within a couple of weeks.
I did
Just
download
not OnlyFans.
I did download the TikTok app actually once upon a time. I did one video and then I think I just wasn't I wasn't sure. However, it does seem to have progressed in its contest in its content. But that just brings us on to the apps, and then that's kind of the security around it. I mean, TikTok's a great example from a mainstream experience, but there's Temu. That was a huge thing recently. You know, I'm still not entirely sure what that was all about. There's the face profiling apps, which a lot of them are using AI now, and it's, you know, take a picture of your face, we'll make it look like something else. Like you very well mentioned a minute ago, a lot of phones are using facial recognition for their second authenticator, if you like. How much do we need to be worried about that? Is that me overthinking, or is this something that people are actually going to be potentially utilizing?
You're not overthinking it, Steve. You're thinking the same as everybody else.
Okay.
Good. Everybody's frightened, or getting to the stage where they're frightened of the internet now. And when you mention to anybody the dark web, they haven't got a clue what the dark web is, but just the words, the dark web, frightens people.
Yeah.
And they hear stories on the news of indecent pictures being stored on the dark web and all this horrible information on the dark web. So people are just frightened of it.
Yep.
And because of the dark web, it's made everybody really, really cautious. And in my line of work, great. I love people being cautious.
Yeah.
So when and we are going on to the app, this is what we're talking about now, the downloading of apps.
Yeah.
But the multi-factorification and the downloading of apps all kind of mingle together. You've got to be really careful what you're doing. So I have a daughters that's on Snapchat, and they're uploading pictures and things like that. And whilst I don't like that, I think, and this is my old head, with Snapchat you can take a picture and then it doesn't store it; it gets deleted when the end of the story is, or something like that. So
I believe that is the case.
Yeah. Oh, you believe? You meaning you've got Snapchat as well now?
No, it's probably one of the few social media apps I don't, because I'm actually really I am on social media all the time, but it's one of the ones I don't. I know it does come off other people's story, but that must be stored somewhere. That's always been my concern.
So that's and we don't want people. And again, the biggest lie that we tell everybody on the internet is, yes, I've read the terms and conditions on a website, but on a website you go to, and I'm not asking people to spend hours and hours looking at this, but when you download something or from a website, before you download it, have a look at their privacy statement. Now, their privacy statement is right at the bottom of their website. It's got privacy statement or privacy policy. And what they have in there, they detail what they do with your data, how long they hold your data for, and what data they do, whether it's biometric, face, and all that. So if you're really, really cautious and you want to find out, then that's the best place to do it. Because if it says on there, we store your data and we store it over in America, or we store it and we keep it for years and years and years, and touch wood, nothing happens, but somewhere down the line they get data that you don't want them to have, and you try and raise this up in court, it'll get thrown out straight away because it says on their privacy statement that they keep their data for so long. So there is ways to be cautious and to move along with it, but it just depends on how level. I'm not going to sit here and say to my family or my friends or even my work, don't go on the internet. It's scary. Don't go. In fact, don't even turn your computer on. If you want to be secure, don't turn your computer on.
No, and I think that kind of flips what I was going to bring up there as I was thinking about it while you were talking. Then is that also don't be too scared, because there's also comparisons. So you might read. Let's use Facebook for example. Just you might read their privacy laws, their terms and conditions, and think, oh my God, that sounds terrible. But then if you went and read the privacy laws or privacy terms and conditions for every other website, you'd probably see very, very similar. So it's kind of using that critical thinking to understand, okay, what is an anomaly and what isn't. Because if every website is storing this data, you'd hope it's not as much to worry about. But when there does become an app or a website or whatever that seems to be storing more data, or there's obviously times to be cautious and times to say, look, this is kind of the way of the world. Like you said, look, you can't say to somebody you can't turn the internet on.
Have you ever watched IT Crowd? The internet's in a box, isn't it?
No, exactly. So again, and that's kind of the security awareness around it in terms of, look, what looks good, which is a term used all the time, and what doesn't. One of the other things I see all the time, and actually, this would be good to pick your brain around, because I do see some people sort of hopefully it's not scaremongering, but I don't know. It's Facebook again, but when you see people that they'll share something on social media that would be like, okay, the name of your first pet and the name of your first school and your name of this will be your whatever name, and then it's like, is that a data capture exercise? Or so, because they are security questions for banks, things like that. But how does that data get back to the people that potentially started that viral post, or is that just literally nothing to worry about?
What happens with them, that kind, if they're talking about that kind of scenario, is that's a company. Now it could be harmless. The source of that could be harmless, but it's who out there is looking at information. So if I'm a hacker, or I want to cause some problems, and someone's posted something up on the internet, and say my favorite one, Doris or Deirdre. Doris and Deirdre are looking at it, and they go, oh, my pet is a dog, and he's ginger, and his name is Fred. There's nothing stopping someone looking at saying, right, okay, ginger, Fred, dog, right, okay, I'm going to try and get Deirdre or Doris's email address and just try that password. And if they do, then hacking companies like that will take that information and sell it on the dark web.
Yeah.
And that's how things snowball and start doing with that. So somebody posted something on Facebook saying, have you seen these years ago? The last film you watched, something. This is your porn name or your elf name.
Yeah, pretty much
Things
what I was
like
getting
that.
to. Yeah.
So,
exactly.
So that's what it. So the harmless part is just somebody just posting it and saying it. It's who sees it.
It's who can see it. Yeah, and a lot of these times it will be relatively large groups or pages on Facebook that are sharing them because they want to get engagement to build up their following. Potentially, if we're thinking, then there's no, malicious activity behind them. Potentially, just trying to do it with just trying to boost their page. But like you said, who is looking at that? And then if they can click on someone's profile and they say, this is Margaret from Birmingham, can I find her email address or her phone number on these credentials I have? Can I make a phone call? Can I do these? Yeah. So it does all interlink. Like you said, I think there are different aspects to it, aren't there?
Yeah. Things like that, I don't necessarily take part in things like that because I think it's pointless. And
no one needs to know what my first school was anyway, apart from my bank occasionally. But
so and also. And it's kind of on the same thing. You know, when we use Facebook because that's where it all mostly comes
we'll
from.
go with that. Most people have got a Facebook account. So.
Yeah. have you ever seen the ones where people post on Facebook and it simply says, I'm supporting cancer research, or I'm supporting leukemia. I'm sending this out to all my friends, and to show your support to supporting cancer and leukemia or something like that. Can you repost it?
Mhm.
Right?
Yep.
And
Yep.
people repost it, and people and the nice, genuine people will repost it and repost to show their support, But what's happening is, if Doris or Deirdre, who started this off, received this email and their email got hacked down the line, the hackers could look on Facebook and look at all the people that this post was sent to, and get all their information, create a big marketing distribution list, and then start sending viruses out and things like that. So
Yeah.
these are the things you've got to be really careful of. Just because I don't repost someone who's saying cancer's bad and show your support and all that, it doesn't mean I don't support it. It
No,
just
of
means
course.
I don't want that information.
No, and slightly less malicious, but very similar ones are. I see things like from Beefeater restaurants or just or pubs or whatever, and it will be a post saying, "Oh, we're giving away a free drink today. If you like and share this post," and people share it, and then if you look at it, it looks like it was started a week ago. It's clearly not an official page. They're just trying to boost up the numbers so they can sell page. That's not as malicious as what we're talking about. But again, it's just about doing due diligence in terms of go and check out the source, have a look at the page, all those sort of things. And then I suppose the last thing to move back, which is kind of, you'd think the very basics of staying secure online, is password management, but it's something that is so easily overlooked because it's no matter whether it's Microsoft Teams, whether it's Office 365, well, it's the same thing, but whether it's Facebook or whether, every now and again you'll get a notification saying your password has expired, need to update it, and so many people will use, just for an example, the same base of their email, and they might just put a 1 at the end, and then when it expires they'll put a 2, and then when they put and it's like, okay, this is bad password management, because if someone does get hold of your credentials, they'll just go through those numbers and they will find what your password is, even if you changed it 2 years ago. So it's in terms of using device management, from a professional perspective from your side, in terms of mobile device management, in terms of a personal perspective, people were probably alluding to social media accounts. It's the importance of using either a password management app if you want, or just making sure it's not consecutive numbers and letters and just things that are very easily guessed.
Yeah. See, I like password managers. The reason why I like them is the proper ones, not the ones that fall off the back of a lorry, but the proper password managers, like from Norton and McAfee and all these password managers. When you go onto a website, so say it's not necessarily your bank, because with your bank, with the two-factor authentication, this is what we talk about. With the two-factor authentication, you can still have your password to the bank, but you won't get any further.
Yeah.
So where you got password managers, these are storing your passwords for, say, like Twitter and Facebook and a shopping site and things like that. By putting it in there, that also doesn't mean that the person, if they get your password manager, or if they steal the password manager, they can still access it. It's not to do with that. What it is to make sure that all your passwords are stored in one place that has what's called a master password, which is the password that accesses it all. And in there, you have your list of all your passwords in encrypted, hashed, non-readable format. And if a password is due to expire, on these password managers, you can click on a button at the right-hand side. And what that will do is that will just generate a random password.
Yeah.
12 characters, 14 characters, a phrase, or whatever it is, and store it. So every time you go onto that website, you don't need to type in this 14-character one. The password manager that you have will automatically just populate it, and then you'll go. So you never need to remember a password. Big thing for me is I hate people use, not hate, it's the wrong word. I dislike when people use the same password for everything. So you have one password, you've got the same password that accesses your shopping, your eBay, your Facebook and all that. All the hacker needs is one password, and that's it, you're gone.
That's it. Everything's
gone.
Yeah.
And before we started this this episode, I was Steve was speaking to me about the topics we're going to talk about.
Yeah.
And when he mentioned this one, I got a little bit excited because I just a couple of days ago had a password demo software from a company.
Yeah.
Now, this part what I'm going to talk about is mainly aimed at companies or small companies rather than the individual person.
Sure.
But what it's a free available downloaded software from a reliable company, and the company's called SecOps. So SEC Ops, SecOps.
Mhm.
And they have what's in there. It's called a password auditing tool. It's free. And what it does, and again, you got to have admin rights. You can't just download it and point it at somebody's office. You have to be a domain admin. So it's somebody in IT that would have to install it. But what this does is once you set it off, every user ID in Active Directory, which is Active Directory for people who don't know, is the big holding point for all user IDs within a company. So the Barclays would have an Active Directory to have all their IDs and things, and that's how they sync all the password expiries. So what this tool does, it looks at all the user IDs and all the passwords, and it doesn't change anything. It just has read access. And what it does is it pulls all these passwords out and shows the ones that have been breached, i.e. passwords that have been used and people have breached it in the past, like password 123 or QWERT QWERT. All these passwords and it's breached, and also you can set in it what the company password policy is. So if your password policy is 12 characters, you put 12 characters in and it will go through all Active Directory and show you the users that have passwords that aren't matching the password policy.
Wow.
And all the ones that are breached, even the passwords that have been, your password expired and my password was password 123. It's expired, so I'm now going 1234. So it also works out that. So so it's a really, really good free tool. And when you want to get more advanced, you have to purchase the whole package. But when I seen that, I thought that would be brilliant to investigate those people that have weak passwords or passwords that's so easy. And it is easy. If somebody said, "Oh, right, you've got a new application, put a new password in," you go, "Oh, God, I'll just do the same password with 123 at the end or 789 at the end."
Or you put an exclamation mark if it says it needs a special character.
Yeah. My missus does that sometimes, and I keep saying, "Joe, it's not going to make any difference." If somebody's got your password, there's only like 8 or 9 special characters. All they have to do is 8 or 9 goes, and they've got it.
It's not going to work out well at all. And I do get it. It's something again you've alluded to a couple of times across our numerous topics here. Is people think it's an inconvenience, but I tell you what, okay, for the 60 seconds it might take you to set up an authenticator or a password manager or whatever. It's a hell of a lot less inconvenient than having your bank details stolen or being locked out of your social media accounts or your work account or your Office 365, whatever it is. It's a lot less inconvenient than that. And the black hats or the hackers out there are getting more sophisticated. So for the sake of what is a relatively small amount of work, it might sound really confusing, it genuinely isn't. It's really not. If I can do it, anybody can do it. I promise you.
No, it is, and some of these password managers, okay, they're not free, but if you're buying like McAfee or Norton to protect your laptop virus wise, they do have add-ons which are cheaper than you just buying the whole thing. So I think it's recommend if you're a person that's going on to many websites and typing in your username and password into many websites, I would highly recommend it, because if you wanted to change the password, just click a button and it will change it.
Yeah, no, and there is there's a website I did mention. If you are curious as to whether your email address has been shared on the dark web or whatever, there is a website called Have I Been Pwned. Now that is spelled Have I Been, and it's PWNED.com. Just pop your email address into there. It will tell you if there's been any data breaches with any apps you've downloaded, whether any websites. I've been on there. I'm like, oh wow, okay. MyFitnessPal appears to be a big one between me and my friends. It happened a long time ago, but they must have had a data breach at some point. It's just worth having a look at that and then saying, okay, maybe I need to change my password. But that's just curiosity, and again, for the sake of spending 10 seconds looking at a website, you might be able to save a much bigger headache down the line, and that's essentially just general due diligence in day-to-day life. And that's kind of where all these topics come in.
And that's where these topics will go in future episodes as well. We don't want to get people lost in boring security stuff, or we want people to be related to it. And we want people to enjoy it. So that's how we go. I think we're nearly at the end now, Steve.
I think we are. But
you know, one thing we forgot. You forgot.
Go on.
How has your last few weeks been?
In what sense?
No, we didn't introduce ourselves and what we were doing. So have you done anything interesting?
Not much. No, you are absolutely correct. We haven't done much we didn't do the introduction in terms of how our week's been. I think over that sort of Christmas and New Year period, I suppose from my perspective, work tends to slow down. From your perspective, it doesn't really change for you, does it? You're still trying to keep everyone secure. So
that's the thing. Hackers don't have a Christmas. The hackers' Christmases are when they manage to get in the defenses when people are half asleep and drunk.
No, mine's just been spent with family, had some time off. I think a lot of companies do tend to sort of, from my work side of things, tend to wind down around mid-December. And then pick up again. So it's been relatively quiet, but that's never a bad thing for me. Hopefully it's been as quiet for you.
It has. It's just it's at that budget time now, isn't it? So you've got to think of what am I going to spend my money on next year and all that. So that's where all the security stuff kind of quietens down, you've got to go now onto the admin stuff and saying what you want to spend your budget on.
It's how do I make an argument to my CFO how we need money to spend in this area and make him understand it? Tell him to listen to our podcast, and then he might understand it better, and then you get a bit more budget for the year, mate.
No, that won't work like that way. he'll most likely want to appear on one of the podcasts.
No, this is why we don't need to spend money. No. I don't. I have no idea who the CFO is that Terry works with. That's just I was very much stereotyping. But I think that's probably a good end. We want to keep it as short as possible. I think you can tell that these are rolling on quite nicely because each one seems to get a little bit longer.
And to be honest with you, Steve, we could talk a bit more about each
always.
one.
I'd sit here all night, but I think it's good to keep it bite-sized chunks. We've probably got, I think we're around 40 minutes on this one.
I'm not that I'm counting. It's 32 and 52 seconds at the moment. So
okay. Because I know we spoke prior to recording. So okay. But, well, thank you again, anybody that has listened. Again, any comments, feel free to find myself or Terry on LinkedIn or anywhere else. Give us any topics you'd like to listen to. We've got some ideas of people we'd like to invite onto the podcast as well to have a chat, which hopefully we'll be doing that, which should bring a nice peripheral view on a few things.
We wanted it as we started. What was it? A couple of months ago now. We wanted to finish the year and just getting people interested in the flavour. And then in the new year, well, January, February onwards, we'll start bringing people in, and it may sneak over the 30 minutes once we get, because there's a couple of good people out there that have got some good topics to talk about.
I think some of the names you and I have discussed would be really good. So again, thank you guys. I don't know if Terry, you want to do any form of sign out, but if not, we'll leave it at that.
No, again, just emphasizing what Steve just said. Thank you very much, everyone that's subscribed, followed us on YouTube as well, because we're on there as well. We wanted to hide behind just audio, but we decided in the world we're today, we've got to show our faces as well. So no hiding. So thank you very much for everybody, and hopefully you'll join us again very soon. Thanks a lot. See you for now. Bye bye.
Cheers, guys.